Okay, how you doing, everybody? And welcome to episode number 101, like PCH 101 of the John Riley Project. It is Tuesday, not December, it's January 6th, 2020. And guess who's here in town to talk sports? None other than Mr. David Leland. How you doing, Dave?
Good. How about you?
All right, man. Jesus, so much been going on in the world of sports. You were here about, maybe a month ago?
Yeah.
And December is always action-packed. I mean, there's just so much going on. But before we get into sports, man, what's going on in your world? I mean, you're breathing sports 24/7, pretty much, right? You don't get much activity for other things, huh?
Not really, though. Had a fun Christmas with both my mom's family and my dad's family.
Nice. Did you guys go out of town, or everyone came here?
We went to Santa Maria, where my mom's from, for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Did that with her family. Then went up to see my dad's family in Sebastopol. My grandpa lives in Sebastopol, about an hour-ish northeast of San Francisco, and all my dad's siblings and their families were there. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. And so Sebastopol is, up in Marin on the coast. And then, I'm sorry, your mom's family is where?
Santa Maria.
Santa Maria.
It's an hour north of Santa Barbara.
Yeah, like near San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, it's kind of in between Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo.
One of my high school friends lives in Santa Maria, and he's a chiropractor, and he has a vineyard, and he grows grapes and makes his own wine. So kind of a cool area there too. So right on. All right, well, welcome back. Got so much to talk about. Football, NFL, Aztecs. We got Padres. We got Aztec basketball. I mean, look at you. You're wearing the Aztec basketball shirt and the new Padre hat. Mm-hmm. So which one you want to pick first?
Well, how about Aztec basketball? 15-0, number 7 in the nation after the big win at Utah State on Saturday night with no Nathan Mensah, no Arop. And then I see a Utah State fan saying, I would have liked to see that game if Queta or whatever the 7'2" center's name, however you say his name.
I think it's Queta.
Queta?
Yeah.
I saw Utah State fans saying, I would have liked to see that game when we were healthy. And I replied to the guy, we didn't have Mensah or Rope at all. So you really want to see that?
Yeah, really. I mean, it was
and the next game's here. So that was at their place. That's a huge win. That's
a tough environment to play. I mean, I remember they were talking about how it's a really low ceiling. So the sound really bounces around. The student section is, arguably as good or if not more energetic than the show. I mean, it's a big-time student section.
You probably saw this on the broadcast on Saturday, too, how weird that arena looks on TV because of that low ceiling.
Yeah. So it must be just louder than you know what in there. So
Absolutely.
The Aztecs were in control the whole game.
Yeah, they let it get a little closer than they would have liked after being up 16, but hey, as long as you get the wins, it doesn't matter. I mean, Gonzaga's number 1. They beat Pepperdine by 5 at home on Saturday night. So you're not always going to blow teams out like you should. I mean, and that was a good Utah State team, and it was at their place. So just being there at all was great. You can't be picky about how you win. You just got to get the wins. You're not always going to have your A game like we saw against San Jose State.
Yeah, really. But, I just seemed like in that game, Utah State would start to kind of creep up a little bit, maybe get it into single digits, like down 7 or 6, and then Mitchell or Schakel would just hit a dagger, and then, boom, they're back up to double digits.
I think the one that really put it away was, what was there, like a minute 45 left. Malachi drove. He kicked it out to Schakel for the 3, and he drained it. Yeah. That was the dagger right there.
Yeah.
Because then they started fouling and were being kind of try-hards and got within 9 because they kept fouling, even though it was pretty much over.
There was a moment, I don't know if we're talking about the same play, but probably this was earlier in the game when, Malachi, I think, had 3 fouls by this point. It was in the second half, and he drove, and there were like 2 or 3 defenders ready to take the charge, and he saw it, and he just hit a jump stop and planted and then kicked it out because he knew if he would have gone all the way in, it would have been the 4th foul. So he's a heady player, smart.
Not only a smart player, a great player too.
So I've seen people online comparing him now to Steph Curry. What do you think of that?
That's a little bit crazy, but I did like John Schaefer of Extra 1360, I think it was. He was saying how Malachi should get All-American consideration. I kind of agree with that. I mean, because he's that guard for like one of the most surprising best teams out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's just been fantastic. And, we saw him a couple years ago when he was with Washington State, and he was damn good then. But he's better now.
Yeah, he lit us up in I think it was the Fullerton Classic Championship, John Wooden Classic in Fullerton.
Yeah, we were there. And that was a lot of fun. Do you ever make that trip up to Cal State Fullerton? I mean, you're like first row, second row. What a great way to see a game. But yeah, he lit us up. But I think he's much better now. He's just a more mature player.
He's better than I thought. I mean, I thought when he transferred, I thought he was just a shooter. No, he's an all-around player. Mm-hmm. He's fantastic.
So still, I'm wondering, with this focus on this year, but you can't help but wonder, will he be with us next year? Do you think he'll enter the draft?
I don't think he's like a leave early for the draft kind of guy, so I would expect him back next year.
Okay. So, I think 4 of the starters were in double digits.
I believe that's correct, too.
Yeah. So, and then even Pulliam, Trey Pulliam, he had a nice game.
He really did.
I think
I like him better than Fagan, personally. I think he's better than Fagan, personally.
Yeah, I mean, he's not as much of a leader on the court, but Pulliam's got great handles. I mean, whenever he's on the court, he is the undisputed point guard. They always immediately give it to him.
Absolutely.
And he had, I think, like 5 assists maybe in the game.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and his floater, he was dropping it in. So, yeah, he had a great game.
Yeah. Mitchell stepped up big, too, since they put him in the lineup. I know we talked earlier in the year about should he be starting. Mm-hmm. He's kind of had to with Mensah out the last 2 games, and he's been great those 2 games.
So what happens when Mensah comes back? Is Mitchell go back to the bench?
I mean, you were undefeated when Mensah was in there. And
yeah.
I think it depends on the team, though. Like, if you're playing Air Force, they literally can't have big guys because you can only be a certain height to fit in a helicopter.
Right.
So when you play a team like that, then you start Mitchell because you don't need a big guy.
Right.
When you play teams like that, when you play Air Force, but for the most part, Mensah should start. Maybe if one team's really, really small, you start Mitchell.
Can you see a scenario where they'd start Mensah and then start Mitchell in place of Schakel?
I can't see that. No.
No. But what's the deal with Mensah? We're hearing different reports. I mean, upper respiratory. Some people have said a blood clot. I think the team is careful on what they can say publicly.
Yeah.
But
I do know he won't be playing our next game because he wasn't on the trip because Mark Ziegler said he wasn't on the trip to Logan. And since San Diego State is not in session right now, I imagine they're staying out there instead of coming all the way back to San Diego. Mm-hmm. And if he's not on the trip for that, then obviously he won't be there when we play at Wyoming on Wednesday.
But I think some people are saying he could be out. I mean, worst case scenario, he could miss the rest of the year. It's that serious of an issue.
That would be a big time bummer, but we have the depth to cover for that, though.
And Arop is going to come.
And Arop will come back soon.
So when is he forecasted to come back?
They were hoping he would return for the Utah State game. Obviously, that didn't happen. He was on the trip, though, so maybe he'll come back Wednesday against Wyoming. I can't imagine he's far off, though.
Right on.
It's been about a month since the injury, so I imagine he's not far off.
Yeah, he would have. I mean, he'd be a great addition when he comes back. I mean, just huge energy when he's on the court. So to Wyoming. So how do you think the Aztecs look on their trip to Laramie?
Well, we all know how tough it is to play at Laramie because of the elevation and, it's Laramie. But Wyoming's horrible this year, but I still think this is not an easy game just because, trap game coming off the big win. Laramie's a tough place to play. Although this team won at BYU, won at Utah State. Doesn't seem like the altitude really bothers them, so they have that going for us. But still, with the travel in this conference, there's no easy road games. So how do the Aztecs actually get to Laramie? And I know there's been the stories of the charter jet, but otherwise they would fly into Denver, right? From Laramie? Is there no airports in the entire state of Wyoming? Well, there are, but I think what they've done in the past is if the weather's decent, they'll fly into Denver and then they'll go north and go over the mountains on a charter bus. But if the weather is really ferocious, that's when they use their 1 or 2 charter plane flights that they have money for. And there was that one game, it was maybe 3 years ago or so, when they were flying in the storm and they had to stop in Utah to refuel. Do you remember that story? I do. Yeah, they were on their way to Laramie for that one. But I'm curious to see how they get there this year. What was the year that they were in? Known as visiting. What was the year that they were in Laramie? They only scored 9 points in the first half. I would guess that would be the 12-13 season would be my best guess on that one. That was the most frustrating game to watch. We couldn't shoot the ball back then. This team doesn't lack scoring, that's for sure. So what's Wyoming's record? Do you know? It's pretty bad, and they lost to Utah Valley. at home. They lost to somebody else that's really bad, and they needed overtime to beat University of Denver. So
Okay.
they're not very good, but again, playing Laramie, you can never take that for granted.
Okay, so then Wyoming, and then Saturday night they come back home to play Boise State.
That's correct.
So how do you like that game?
I like that game. Back at home, should be a big crowd again. We've been getting big crowds the last couple games. And I think they sold out the game against Fresno State.
Right. So I think we're going to get some maybe some more sellouts. Yeah.
Absolutely. I imagine almost every game will be close to sold out the rest of the way.
Right on. All right. So the Aztecs. It seems like they're getting a lot more respect from the national media.
Absolutely.
You're seeing people talking about them as could run the table, could be a number 1 seed in March.
Joe Lenardi has us as a 2 right now. Playing, I think it's UC Irvine would be the 15 we'd play in Sacramento.
That guy's great. I mean, he creates his bracket before the season even begins, and he just updates it weekly or so.
I think he said every Tuesday and Friday, rest of the way.
Amazing. So this is setting up to be a magical season, and if they're I think a 1 through a 4 seed, then they'll stay on the West Coast.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that'd be good.
I got us finishing 30-2 at the end of the Mountain West tournament. I think we'll lose the 29th at New Mexico because they play at UNLV on the 26th before that. And then one more loss somewhere mixed in the rest of the way. So finish the regular season 27-2. Then I think we win the Mountain West tournament. So we'll be 30-2 Mountain West regular season and tournament champions going into the NCAA tournament. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think running the table is just too much to ask.
It's too hard in this conference with all the tough travel you got.
Yeah, exactly. And even with regular travel, I mean, it's college basketball. Like anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
You were pretty good at picking the record for the football team.
I was.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll be true on this too.
Okay.
I hope so. I'd love to be 30-2 and have a Mountain West regular season and Mountain West tournament championship.
That'd be sweet. So yeah, I mean, this is a great time of year, man. When the Aztecs are playing ball, love the basketball program. And then remember all those people like a year or two ago fired Dutcher? Like, where are those guys now?
Yeah, there's talk about National Coach of the Year for him now.
Exactly. All right, man. So what else you got on the Aztecs?
That's all I got on basketball. I think you hit on all my points. Aztec football. We didn't know what bowl game they were going to do last time I was on. Turned out it was the New Mexico Bowl against Central Michigan, which was a really impressive win. I mean, we did whatever we wanted against them. They had 2 really good running backs coming in. Other than that one big run, we shut those guys down. And what was the final score of the game? 48-11. We blew them out.
Yeah, I mean, they had that one big play for a touchdown, but otherwise the defense just shut them down.
Nice way to end the season. Great way to end the season for Jesse Matthews. What a story from walk-on freshman to our best wide receiver. And he had a huge game, 2 touchdown receptions, one of them a really long one. Offensive MVP. How about that?
Right on.
Great way to end an incredible story that his freshman season was.
Yeah, I mean, that's special. Very special. What's going on in the Aztec program? Anything else you're hearing?
Well, we got the graduate transfer, Jack Sears, the quarterback. He used to be a 4-star at USC, never really got a chance there, but he did start one game in 2018 against Arizona State, went 20-28, 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. So maybe he can play here. He's going to compete for the job.
And then they have that other quarterback from Helix, right?
Carson Baker, who started the BYU game, yeah.
Yeah, so he's in the mix. And is there any other? They've got to have 2 or
maybe Brookshire.
Okay.
The transfer from some community college. I forgot which one it was.
Okay. So they got guys there that can step up.
Yeah, we're going to need to because we're losing some key defenders. Chizino and Barku are gone.
Yeah.
So,
well, Tizino's definitely a draft pick, right?
Actually, I was reading something this morning that said he might not be, but that was just this one like draft wire site. Everything else I've read assumes he's going to be like a late day 2, early day 3 pick. So we'll see what happens there. Do
you think Barku gets into the NFL?
I haven't seen much on him, but I mean, when you have 8 or 9 interceptions, I mean, you got to be considered.
Right. And I guess the last cornerback from San Diego State's doing damn well for Atlanta, right?
DeMonte Casey. He didn't have as good of a year this year, but he led the league in picks in 2018.
Yeah, right on. So there's so many Aztec alumni. I mean, especially, we were talking about Strasburg and Kawhi and Marshall Falk, but now like Xander Schauffele even.
Did he win the golf tournament this weekend?
Yeah, he did. In Hawaii.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I saw he was the leader in the clubhouse on Saturday. That's awesome.
I mean, I checked PGA.com and I think it was the final score. He had won by one stroke. When I was watching on TV, they were going into extra, what do they call it? It's not extra innings, but when they have a tie after 18 holes.
I think they just call it a playoff.
Yeah, playoff. Yeah. So he had, they were just going into the playoff, but I saw, on the website that he won by a stroke.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. So the Aztecs, man, the program is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Unfortunately for the Aztecs, we might be losing Rocky Long.
Really?
Yeah. Said he was looking for defensive coordinator jobs elsewhere. I know there's people on social media who want him fired after every loss, which is one of the stupidest things. One of the things I hate about Twitter the most, honestly.
Mm-hmm. How old is Rocky?
I think he's in his late 60s. He might even be 70.
Okay.
So I can't blame him. If he wants to leave for a less stressful job as a defensive coordinator for a Power 5 school, which probably pays better than being a head coach here in the Mountain West.
Probably, yeah.
I can't really blame him for that, but I'd really miss him and everything he brought. I've talked about before, like the culture he brought, the defensive game planning and scheming, how he made this team believe they were always going to find a way to win. And all the Mountain West championships and bowl games while he was here. I'd really miss all that if he went. So I really hope he stays. My guess right now is if that's out there, he's interviewing for a Syracuse defensive coordinator job today. I imagine if he gets a good offer, which he probably would, he's considered one of the best defensive minds in college football. He's probably gone. That really sucks, but I can't really blame him for it if that happens.
And he's the innovator on defense, right?
Of the 3-3-5 defense, yeah.
So I wonder if he would take that with him. I guess it depends on the personnel that they have.
I mean, if you're going to hire him as defensive coordinator and you respect how great of a defensive mind everyone says he is, then you got to let him bring that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just say Rocky Long departs. What happens next? Do we get Brady Hoke back again?
Well, what's interesting to me is Darren Smith I'm not really a fan of Darren Smith, but he does have pretty good information, so I'm going to run with this, is that he said he knows people that Kevin O'Connell would want to come back as their head coach.
Nice. Now, he's like a quarterback coach.
I think he was the interim offensive coordinator in Washington this year after they fired Jay Gruden and promoted Bill Callahan to interim head coach.
Redskins, not Huskies, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
NFL.
Wow. It'd be great to have him back. He was a good quarterback for the Aztecs.
Yeah, unfortunately, he played at a time when we were under Chuck Long and we had nobody.
Right.
I remember when the Chargers were still here and he was on the Chargers roster in the preseason. I think it was 2012, and the Chargers had, injuries on the O-line going into the first preseason game, and they're like, we don't want Rivers, so we even one series behind this line. And I remember one radio host was like, oh, just put Kevin O'Connell back out there. He's used to running around like a chicken with his head cut off because nobody else is out there. So that was the kind of era he played in. But yeah, he was a good quarterback for us.
Now, I remember they were saying before that the Aztecs had 4 Division I head coaches on the staff last year. So imagine, obviously if Rocky left, they'd have 3 remaining D1 head coaches. But if they brought in Kevin O'Connell, who had never been a head coach before, do you think that might be disrespectful to the other coaches like Hoke?
I don't think so. I mean, Brady Hoke, he came back he was willing to come back as a D-line coach for the guy who replaced him when he went to Michigan. So I think he understands. He knows. He willingly came back to be an assistant under the guy who replaced him here. So,
All right, man. I guess we'll just see how it rolls out.
One of those former D1 head coaches is Jeff Horn. I could care less if he's gone. I don't like Jeff Horn as an offensive coordinator at all.
That's right.
I think he's a huge part of the problem because the play calling is just way too predictable.
Well, who was the other Division I head coach? If it's not Rocky or Brady or the offensive guy, what's his name again? Jeff, the offensive coordinator.
Jeff Horton, yeah.
Yeah, Horton. Okay, yeah. So who's the 4th D1 coach?
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either. All right, so I guess I would imagine the spring practices usually get going right after the combine, right?
Yeah.
And then the combine is in April. So
it's in March actually.
In March, so you figure
because the draft's in April.
So you figure that if Rocky's going to switch, he's going to have to do it within the next 60 days.
Yeah, I imagine by the end of this week, we'll know if he's staying here or leaving to be a defensive coordinator elsewhere.
Right.
And I want to get a new head coach in here pretty quick so he can like build his own staff. Because it seems like Kevin O'Connell and Jeff Horton's offensive philosophies wouldn't mesh. So if like we got Kevin O'Connell, which is the guy I think we'd get if Rocky were to go, I think he would want a new offensive coordinator, maybe a couple other coaching changes. So hopefully Rocky makes up his mind one way or the other soon so we can move forward before, spring practice and recruiting.
Who would you rather have, Kevin O'Connell or Rocky Long to stay? What's your preference?
I love Rocky Long. I wish he'd stay. I want him to stay here till he retired, so I don't want him to leave.
Okay.
Like, even though he's not really the greatest recruiter at all, he develops guys. Like, Pumphrey was a 2-star. Penny was a 3-star. So he can develop guys into good players, even if they're not highly recruited.
Right on. All the bowl games have been going on. We have any highlights of some of the games that we've been seeing over the last month or so?
Honestly, I haven't really been watching the bowl games besides I watched the Michigan-Alabama one. Obviously, I watched the semifinals and the Aztecs.
Right. I mean, I think the national championship game is going to be terrific. LSU and Clemson?
I think the Tigers are winning, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Well, they put up, 49 points in the first half of the semifinal, right?
Yeah, they put on a show, and I thought Clemson got a little lucky to get by Ohio State, so I'll lean LSU in this one.
Okay. When was the last time LSU won a national championship? It's been a long time.
2007.
Okay. Was that, who was the quarterback that played there that went to the Raiders?
Matt Flynn.
No, another quarterback. He was the number 1 overall draft pick, and
Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah,
so, he was not there then. That was the year that Jamarcus Russell got drafted first overall by the Raiders. Actually,
okay,
that was Matt Flynn who replaced him, who was Rodgers' backup in Green Bay, and then Wilson's backup in Seattle, and then Derek Carr's backup in Oakland.
So was Flynn with LSU when they won the national championship?
Yeah, he was their quarterback. He replaced Jamarcus Russell.
Okay, I get it. So that game, I think, is. Today's Monday, the 6th, so it's like a week from today.
Yeah,
right?
It's a week from today.
That's a big gap in time. It's almost 2 weeks between games.
Yeah, there's so much time between the conference championship game and the semifinals, and then the semifinals and the championship. You're telling me they don't have enough room to make it 8 teams?
Yeah, exactly.
They definitely need to make it 8 teams.
They do. I mean, I'd like to see them go 16 teams.
I would too. I'd go 16 teams. All 10 conference championships and 6 at large.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty easy thing, and then you just seed them appropriately and then run with it.
I mean, you can't really. Everyone loves March Madness, and the Clemson against the Sun Belt Championship would be the same as a 1 versus a 16 in the round of 64. And everyone loves March Madness, so what's the deal? What's the big deal?
It always comes down to money, right? And I think it's the bowl games and the people that run those bowls. They have such. There's deep pockets behind them. Like the Rose Bowl committee. I mean, they've been around forever, right?
Yeah.
It'd be hard to, make the Rose Bowl a play-in game or something. They wouldn't do it.
Well, what I was thinking was, you'd have the 116, 215, you'd have those games at the campus site or the home stadium of the higher seed, and then do what you do now, where the semifinals are a certain bowl and then national championship.
Yeah, that could work. Right on. So, so the national championship will be in a week, and we got college basketball going on. So what else is on your mind?
Well, Padres are always on my mind, being here in San Diego, and they made a trade actually just hours after we recorded our last podcast.
Okay, and which trade was that?
Tommy Pham trade with Tampa Bay.
Ah, that's right, yeah.
I'm a big fan of this trade.
Right on. So break it down for us.
So we traded Hunter Renfroe and Xavier Edwards for him, and we know how Blake Snell feels about Xavier Edwards.
Right.
So Renfroe is a platoon player to me, and he doesn't draw walks. He strikes out a ton. Fun player, hits a lot of home runs, but he's a platoon player. He only hits against right-hand pitching. That's the kind of guys we're trying to move away from, low on base guys like that.
Right.
And I like Xavier Edwards as a prospect, but I didn't love him. It's not like he's a Mackenzie Gore or Patino or CJ Abrams. He's certainly not in that class at all. I'd even rather have Ryan Weathers over him, and we still have all those guys. I liked Edwards. I wasn't attached to him, so I would have preferred he stayed. But to trade him and Renfroe for a guy like Tommy Pham, that's the kind of guy we need. He's a guy. He gets on base, and he's got that little bit of. He's a competitor. He's got that edge to him.
Right.
Like Kevin Kiermaier was saying, he's never played with a more intense teammate than Tommy Pham.
I mean, I was reading a biography about Pham, and I guess he's from the Las Vegas area.
He is.
And, he his father was in jail and he had a very difficult childhood, but he was driven, he was passionate, and he just wanted to get better. And I think he has a tattoo that says "Believe in yourself" on his shoulder.
I don't know if you saw this when it got retweeted onto the timeline after we traded for him. Was the interview from after Game 4 of the division series when we hit the leadoff home run off Verlander.
Right.
And he was saying, the interviewer, I think it was maybe Ken Rosenthal or John Morosi, I forgot who it was, asked him, so, well, anyone you want to thank? He's like, well, I could thank a lot of people, but I thank myself because I would, throw the ball up to myself and hit it. I'd throw the ball against the wall and peel it back. So I could thank other people, but I was driven to make myself better. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I like that kind of attitude in a guy. We need a guy like that, just a gamer, a grinder, Yeah. And in Tampa Bay, he would get on his teammates if they were slacking off. And I like that. We need that in here.
We do.
That's part of the culture change I'm hoping that Jace Tingler brings in. So Tommy Pham's going to be a big part of that. In addition to, as a player, he's the kind of guy we need. He draws walks. He doesn't strike out. He doesn't swing at pitches outside the strike zone. That's the kind of guy we need. We have so many guys who are just free swingers. Like Renfroe. The guy we traded for him. So I just love that we're getting a player like Tommy Pham, who's got an edge like that, who can help not only the lineup, but change the culture too. And I'm really liking the lineup that I would put out there now. Okay. Now you got Tommy Pham. This is how I'd go. I'd have Trent Grisham leading off in center field, Fernando Tatis Jr. hitting second, playing shortstop, Tommy Pham hitting third, playing left field, Manny Machado cleaning up at third base, Eric Hosmer hitting fifth, playing first base, a platoon of Franchi, Cordero, and Will Myers in right field hitting sixth, Francisco Mejia hitting seventh, and Jurickson Profar hitting eighth.
That's a good lineup.
I do like that lineup. I mean, it's not, there's still, question marks in there, but there's definitely upside as well.
So Grisham, leadoff hitter, he's a lefty, right?
Yes, lefty bat.
So he could potentially platoon with Margot.
I would just let Grisham play, but Margot did have good numbers against left-handed pitching this year. So if you want to do that, I'd be fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different configurations, and I've even heard people talking about maybe Myers and Hosmer should platoon at first base.
Well, then you got to play Franchi Cordero against left-handed pitching. I don't know how I feel about that. So
Cordero is like the wild card, man. I mean, if he's healthy and plays to his potential, I mean, he could blow up. He's
such a wild card. He's tearing it up in the Dominican Winter Leagues right now. He's such a tease because we've seen, the power, the speed. Last year when he played, he was taking more walks, even with the strikeouts, he's such a tease with all that talent, and he just can never stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this is the year he finally stays healthy and we get to see, a full season of Franchi Cordero because the sky is the absolute limit for him.
And and there's a lot of speed on this lineup too. I mean, you figure Pham is a big stolen base guy, right?
Not as big as he was a couple years ago. He's still good for 20 stolen bases, though.
Yeah, I mean that's a terrific lineup, and there's potentially maybe more changes coming.
Well, I don't know how much more we're gonna do because that Will Myers contract's kind of preventing us from making any more big news. Mm-hmm. About that Will Myers guy. I know you don't feel the same as me on this one. So what do you think they should do with Myers?
Well, I'm always of the opinion that if you packaged prospects with him, you're going to lose out on those prospects. To me, it's spent money, right? So you're better off finding a way to have him develop into what he could be rather than giving up, a lot of resources just to have someone take him off your hands. So if that means he ends up being a platoon guy or a pinch hit guy, that's probably better than having to, send away $30 million or give away, some of the better prospects.
Well, here's my thing about that. Say you're sending away $30 million, you're still saving $30 million that you could go get on another player. So if you're not giving up an absolute elite of the elite prospects to get rid of him, let's just say, if Marcell Ozuna wasn't a free agent, would you trade, say, Baez for Marcell Ozuna?
Probably.
That's the way I look at it. It's like if you attach Baez to Myers to free up money to go get an Ozuna. That's the way I look at it personally. Mm-hmm. I do see your point about hoping Myers, maybe it was pretty clear he didn't like Andy Gray, and so maybe he would do better with Jace Tingler, but I'm done with counting on Myers. I mean, he hasn't been good since the first half of the 2016 season. Mm-hmm. I mean, every time it's a clutch situation, you just know he's going to strike out.
Right.
And I'm kind of done with that, especially because, he was traded from Tampa Bay and from Kansas City. He's a really talented player who was like a number one prospect, and he was traded twice by the time he was 23 or 24. I mean, that's a serious red flag if a guy that talented is getting traded twice by that age in an era where we're moving more towards the young player.
Yeah.
That's a big red flag to me, and, it just seems to me like his heart's not in it. His head's not in it. I mean, is he making adjustments to get better? I really don't think so, because there's no way a guy as talented as him should have these 2-month long slumps that he has. And when we were at spring training last year, my dad and I are walking around, the fields, and my dad's saying that he's talking to guys joking about like his golf swing or something. And my dad's like, he just doesn't give a crap.
Right.
And I unfortunately feel that way. And I unfortunately think he doesn't really want to get better, despite what he says and what his defenders say on Twitter, which is another one of the things I hate about Twitter. So they think the guy's better than Hosmer, even though I know Hosmer's defense sucked, but at least he got clutch hits.
Yeah.
And then you have the computer guys say, oh, clutch isn't a thing. It's like, really?
Yeah.
So you honestly think a solo home run when you're down 10-0 should be graded as better or the same as a 2-run single that gives you the lead in the 7th inning? That's just dumb to me. I don't get that.
Mm-hmm. You see so many, there's a lot of chatter on Twitter, and in Padres Twitter especially. But I saw one comment that I thought was interesting, is because they've been loading up on their bullpen, right? Mm-hmm. And we could break that down, what the pitching rotation and the bullpen is going to look like. But there's so many new veterans that are on in the pen. Some people have said maybe they package Yates and Myers together.
I think I saw that yesterday as well.
And then, there's a lot of candidates that we have that could step in and be the closer.
Well, let's just say hypothetically you did trade Yates. You'd still have, Pomeranz and Castillo if he's healthy. Strom's going to be in the bullpen from the start of this year. And Munoz.
Munoz.
And we just brought Craig Stammen back. I can get into that. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I was really shocked when I saw it. And at first my thinking was, WTF, why?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's only 2 years. It's not that much money. And I think he's actually pretty good when he's not overworked. I think a lot of his problems last year that made people not like him was because Andy Green's just throwing his arm off. He's pitching like 3 innings in 2 days. Sometimes, 7 innings in a 4-day span. I've talked about Andy Green's horrible bullpen management before on here. Mm-hmm. I felt Stammen was one of the big victims of that. Like, he just overworked Stammen. Like, Stammen pitched almost every other game. Sometimes pitched 2 innings at a time. So I think if he's not going to be the primary setup man now, because even if you did trade Yates and, package it with Myers or whatever, he'd still be behind, Pomeranz, Munoz. I'd put him behind Castillo if Castillo's healthy. And maybe even behind Strom, too. So he's not going to be your primary setup man. And if you have a game where, you're scoring runs, but your starter's struggling, it's like 5-5 in the 5th inning, and the other team has the bases loaded. Stammen's a good guy to bring in. Maybe get out of that, pitch the 6th. Mm-hmm. Then maybe you can score again, get to the back end guys. So with a deeper bullpen, he's actually a good guy to have.
Yeah, I agree. And
when you think about it that way, I still wouldn't have re-signed him, but he's not a bad guy to have for that.
Yeah, it's just... He I was surprised. I saw the metrics, and he was one of the top relievers in all of Major League Baseball. I think he was ranked like in the top 20 for sure.
Mm-hmm. Over the last 2 or 3 years.
And then, he had the one bad game against, was it Philly, when he gave up the 4 consecutive homers?
Washington.
It was Washington.
And of course, everyone's like, oh my God, we re-signed the guy that gave up 4 straight homers. What the hell are we doing?
But other than that, I think his ERA was under 3.
Yeah, it's like people cling to the one bad outing, which you should never do as a reliever, because if you're a reliever, you can have that one bad outing that destroys your ERA.
Right.
And you're not a starter that can make up for it, by pitching 7 shutout innings and then having another game where you go 6, allow 2 runs. As a reliever, if you have one really bad outing like that, it's going to kill your ERA.
So, yeah, I agree with you. And I think having Stammen is a good fit for this bullpen, and it's the veteran leadership that he's going to bring. The only concern that I had is that we've added so many veterans that I wonder how much space is left in the bullpen for some of our prospects that we think can legitimately help us, that wouldn't necessarily be experiments, but would be guys that we could count on.
You talking about like Miguel Baez?
Yeah, that's a great example.
That's a great point. I think they're loading up on these bullpen guys because they still want to develop, him and Morejon as starters.
Right.
So they want to send them back to the minors and develop them as starters again. So So if you're loading up on bullpen guys so that you can develop, Baez and Morejon as starters again, I like that because those guys have good stuff. Now Morejon has the durability question, so I would just leave him as a reliever. But he has enough upside that you can understand why they'd want to develop him as a starter.
So I'm assuming they have a 26-man roster now, right?
Correct.
Okay, and you figure, I'm assuming it's going to be 13 position players and 13 pitchers.
Yeah, well, you got an interesting element is I didn't even talk about him, the Jake Cronenworth guy that we got, the, second baseman, shortstop / pitcher guy that we got. Supposedly he's actually serviceable as a pitcher enough that he could actually be like a legit two-way player. I mean, not that we need any more bullpen options with the guys we've gotten, but
yeah, I mean, especially if it's, garbage innings, right? The team is like down 10-1 in the 7th or something. But let's just for the sake of discussion, assume, okay, you have 8 starters that you just listed. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm assuming there'll be 4 backups, right? There'll be a catcher, an infielder, 1 or 2 outfielders. So we probably have 13 pitchers. 5 of them are starters.
Yeah.
So that means there's 8 in the bullpen. Mm-hmm. So who are those 8?
Well, I like Matt Strom. Okay. I like Jose Castillo. Those are your lefties. Besides Pomeranz, that's your third lefty. Mm-hmm. Then you got Andres Munoz and Kirby Yates, obviously.
Right.
Stammen's back. I imagine Cal Quantrill will be in there as a long reliever, if you figure, Paddack, Davies, Lucchese, Lamet, and Richards are your 5 starters. You probably put Quantrill in the bullpen. For the 8th reliever, that's anybody's guess. David Bednar's a candidate. Cronenworth maybe. So you got options there.
Yeah. Perdomo's done, right? Is Perdomo going to get released?
It sounds like he's not in the plans, although he actually wasn't that bad as a reliever, so I wouldn't mind still having him. But it doesn't sound like he's in the plans, really.
Right.
Because he wasn't that bad as a reliever, but it just doesn't sound like he's in the plans.
But there's a list of like 5 or 6 other guys that could potentially take that last bullpen spot. But I guess part of the game, I think that Preller and Tingler are playing is that they know there's always going to be injuries, especially to the pitchers.
Yeah.
So, it's
look what happened last year with our bullpen injuries. It killed the team.
Yeah. So you've got to have, like they say, it's a 40-man roster. So those guys that are in El Paso, they're really part of the major league team. They just happen to come and go at different times.
Yeah. And Perdomo's fine as a reliever. Like if you want him as like the last guy in the bullpen or, have him at AAA coming up and down, which I'm sure they do. It's another thing I hate. This isn't just Padres Twitter. This is, people in general is like, people are so stuck on their opinion of a guy. Like everyone said, oh, Perdomo was so awful. Like when he was a starter, like they just want nothing to do with him, even though he's actually decent as a reliever. It's that stereotype that doesn't go away. Another example of this would be, I don't know if you saw it, but like Lamar Jackson got 47 of 50 votes for the All-Pro.
Yeah.
And one of the guys who didn't vote for him was Bill Pulliam, who insisted that he would be a wide receiver in the NFL. And so he didn't vote him as an All-Pro.
What an idiot.
That's just another example of what I was saying. A guy who can never change his opinion about somebody, no matter how wrong they're proven. That's not even like I said. That's not even a Padres Twitter thing. That's just people in general.
Yeah, it is.
And it's annoying to me.
It is. Who's the other pitcher? We signed a free agent. He was with the Giants, and then he went to Japan.
Oh, Pierce Johnson?
Yeah.
I don't really know much about him, but maybe he's a Miles Michaelis, a guy who didn't have a lot of success in the States, went over to Japan, reinvented himself, and came back. Maybe he's like that. I'm not going to count anything for him like that. And if he doesn't do anything good, it's nothing. There's no risk taken.
Right. But he was a free agent, right?
Yes, he was.
So, all right. Was there anyone else that we signed? I thought there was like maybe one more pitcher that we added. Maybe not.
No, because we already talked about Zach Davies.
Yeah.
So probably not thinking of him.
Okay. Who's your opening day starter?
It's got to be Paddack.
Yeah, I agree.
Has to be
Paddack. Yeah, for sure. Man, I
can't wait to see what he's going to do this year too. He's not on an innings limit anymore, so he doesn't have to worry about how many 2-strike hits did he give up this year.
Yeah, I don't know
because he's thinking I can't waste a pitch because I'm on a 90 pitch limit. So now when he's ahead 0-2, he can really bury that changeup in the dirt or get the guy to chase the fastball at the neck, because he doesn't have to worry about, I'm coming out after this many pitches. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore.
So no no pitch limit, no inning limit, we can see like the real deal.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
I definitely think, with the 2-strike hits he gave up, and like he almost pounded the zone too much.
Yeah.
And he had a really high home run to fly ball rate. I really am excited to see what Paddack can do, because I really think that innings and pitch limit kind of got in his head a little bit at times.
Yeah.
So I really cannot wait to see what Paddack's going to do.
So I think I saw pitchers and catchers report like in 35 days or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming up quick.
You'll have the Super Bowl, and then, pitchers and catchers will report like the next week.
So is Preller going to make any more deals anywhere that you can think of? Maybe are they going to get an ace, or are they just going to go with what they've got?
I'm going to go with what they got. And this is an interesting point that somebody I follow on Padres Twitter said, is that maybe instead of trying to be like the Astros or Cubs, where they have, the loaded lineup and the ace at the top of a rotation, maybe they're going to win the World Series like Kansas City did, where they have, good, not great hitter, a good, not great group of hitters, good but not great group of starters, and a dominant bullpen like Kansas City did to a World Series in 2015, which is interesting to think about because Kansas City is an even smaller market than San Diego, so maybe that's the way you got to build up your team.
Well, it seems like that's what they're doing. They're really loading up on that bullpen.
I mean, the Royals didn't have a superstar hitter, maybe Lorenzo Cain in 2015, but, and the Padres have, 2 superstars in Tatis and Machado, but they also aren't as deep as the Royals were. But to offset that, they have 2 superstars, whereas the Royals had 0-1.
So,
and I do think an ace is coming anyways between Gore or Patino, not this year, but next year.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, if Paddack takes the next step, if
Lamet takes the next step, even if Garrett Richards stays healthy, which I wouldn't count on that at all. But
if there's a lot of possibilities where we would have an ace that would just be coming up from the existing rotation.
Which is what I've been saying for a long time when all these people are like, why didn't we throw all that money at Strasburg or Cole? That's what I've kind of been saying this whole time.
So, the whole Ron Fowler, the heads are going to roll thing. Do you really believe that Preller has to have success this year or he's gone?
Define success.
Let's just say over 85 wins.
Yeah, I'd say that.
So if he's less than 85, he could be toast.
Well, I think if he's under 80, he's definitely toast.
Right.
80 to 84 range, it's like that's kind of a toss-up if Preller will be back. 85 plus, he's definitely safe.
See, again, this is my thing with Myers too. I'm always like hesitant to let go of a guy that you're trying to, he's got a plan. Preller has a plan, and the plan, I think, has been developing. Maybe a little more slowly than we'd like to see.
Definitely a little more slowly because, we were promised at the start of the rebuild, we'd contend for the playoffs 19, championship for 20. It looks like that's been pushed back a year. It's still better than what we were doing, before Preller.
Yeah.
It's a little frustrating that it's a year slower than we thought, but it is still much better than, before Preller when it's just like throw darts at a wall and hope for 25 career years.
Right.
Which is what Josh Burns did and why I couldn't stand him. It's what Jed Hoyer did when he was here. It's kind of what Kevin Towers did at the end, too, although Towers was good for a while.
Yeah, so this is just, it's interesting as it goes against my better instinct because I know in the business world, what I usually preach is hire slow, fire fast. But somehow in sports, I seem to be the opposite. I want to fire slow because I like the idea of them building a system, a culture, having consistency, longevity, kind of like what the Pittsburgh Steelers did for so many decades.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean,
well, you talk about the culture. I mean, if you look at what the players were saying and what Darren Smith was saying about how the players felt Andy Green, that's not a healthy culture, and that's why they had to get rid of him.
Yeah, right. I think that makes sense.
And you saw the way, like, Machado and Hosmer and other guys played down the stretch. It was obvious that the culture was just completely toxic with Andy Green.
Right. They were just mailing it in.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, there's so many possibilities. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a great Padre year.
I think we have one of the widest variances of floor and ceilings in the league, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, the Dodgers are going to be really good. Houston's going to be really good. The Yankees are going to be really good. Detroit's going to be terrible. Baltimore's going to be awful. Kansas City's not going to be very good again. Mm-hmm. But for the Padres, it's like, if Grisham takes that next step, if Tatis stays healthy, if Pham's still good, if Hosmer gets back to what he was in Kansas City, if Cordero stays healthy, if Myers, gets his head on straight, if Mejia develops like we like, if Profar bounces back, there's so many things that the Padres, if all that goes well, they could, really surprise some people, win 90 games, make the playoffs. And there's also a chance, Tatis gets hurt again, Myers still doesn't know what the heck he's doing. Cordero gets hurt again.
Yeah.
Mejia doesn't develop as we hope, and we win like 75 games. So there's like a huge variance.
That's right.
It's a big question mark, but honestly, it's kind of fun because you don't really know what's going to happen. Like, if you're a Yankees fan, you're like, okay, we know we're going to win 105, 106 games, win the AL East. Can we win in the postseason?
Right.
Or if you're a Padres fan, you're like, I don't know what we're going to do, but, maybe we can do something special.
We're the old, scrappy, spunky Padre fans, hoping for something special. Did you see that list that was on Twitter that showed the number of postseason wins since 2000? And they stack ranked all the MLB teams, and the Padres were dead last with one postseason win.
Yep. Game 3, 2006 NLDS in St. Louis. It's the only one.
That's just unbelievable.
I believe we've lost, I think it's 8 straight home playoff games.
Oh, yeah, because that stretch, we would always end up playing the Cardinals, and the Cardinals would sweep us. Or like you say, we'd win one on the road.
Yeah, we lost the first 2 games in San Diego last time we made it. We're 0-3 in playoff games at Petco Park.
That's tough. And then you go back to the 98 World Series where we were swept. It's
even in the NLCS in 98, we lost the last 2 home games, 4 and 5, and had to win Game 6 in Atlanta.
Right.
Actually, I think it's 7 straight home playoff losses. Games 4 and 5 of the 98 NLCS, 3 and 4 of the 98 World Series, Game 3 and...
It's unbelievable.
7 straight home playoff losses.
How does this happen? We have such terrible luck. It's just nothing works. Now, this season, promising for the Padres. We're loving the Aztec basketball program. But still, we're so thirsty for a championship in this city.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Good thing is Dean Spanos ain't getting one because they suck this year.
Well, now, what's your take on Rivers? What's going to happen with him?
I think he's gone. I don't think he's going to be a Charger. They don't sound like they want him back. I think if he plays elsewhere, I think it'll be the Indianapolis Colts because, Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator here in San Diego in 14-15. Now he's the head coach in Indy, and Brissett didn't play very well down the stretch, and they had the Andrew Luck retirement. So I could see him as an Indianapolis Colt, but he'd probably retire if he's not an Indianapolis Colt, in my opinion. Yeah,
because he was even saying he could see himself in a headset. And I guess that's a coach, or who knows, maybe even a broadcaster. But yeah,
maybe
I think
you pull a Tony Romo and go straight to the broadcast booth.
He'd be good. He'd be entertaining.
That would be very entertaining.
Yeah. So if Rivers is gone, which I think is for sure, what about Brady? Do you think Brady's coming back?
Oh. You want me to really get into that, huh?
Yeah.
I have to say, the Brady to the Chargers stuff has got to be some of the most ridiculous, nonsensical stuff I have ever seen coming. And Chris Collinsworth even said it was going to happen. Like, Chris Collinsworth is a clown, so that doesn't shock me that he would say this and fall for that. But it just doesn't make sense. Think about it. This guy, he goes from the best organization, that's the envy of every single sports franchise in this 21st century.
Yeah.
They got 6 rings. They got one of the best owners in Robert Kraft. They got an all-time great coach in Belichick. They sell out every game at Gillette Stadium. He's going to leave that for Dean Spanos, for no fans, for one of the worst run organizations in sports?
Yeah.
You really think that makes sense?
Yeah, there's no way.
Does that make any sense to you?
There's no way that's going to happen.
And I say, you know what, though? Honestly, I think it would be funny if it did happen. You know why? Because let's just say he goes there. By the way, this is not going to happen. We were just laughing it off. But if it did, it'd be funny because those 15, 20 Charger fans that they actually have, that they're all, Dean Spanos trolls, whatever. They would all get so excited, be like, oh my God, we're going to the Super Bowl. We got the GOAT, say all that crap. And then they realize that he's washed up now. He needs an O-line to succeed. And the Chargers haven't had a good O-line in 10 years.
Right.
So he gets behind that O-line. He sucks and looks terrible and washed. And they go 5-11 again. It would actually be pretty funny. It's not going to happen. But if it did, that would be pretty funny to see him get all hyped about Brady. And then they go 5-11 because, they have no O-line. Brady's washed.
But the Patriots will bring him back, right? And they got to.
It sounds like there's a chance it's not going to happen. And remember, Bill Belichick traded Randy Moss in the middle of a season, and then they went 14-2. So Belichick will do things that surprise you, and then ends up working out because,
Well, do they have a backup? Who's their backup?
They did draft Jared Stidham from Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, they can sign me or you and probably win 10 games. I mean, Matt Castle hadn't started since high school, and they won 11 games with him in 2008.
Right. Oh, my God, that's right. Yeah, because he was the backup at SC, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was back at USC.
Oh, wow.
But anyways, on a serious note, I think Brady either goes back to New England or retires.
Yeah.
I can't see him playing for somebody other than the New England Patriots.
Yeah, there's no reason for him to cling.
That LA Chargers stuff is such crap. It's just trying to get people to actually care about that team, which they wouldn't need to do if they hadn't let Dean Spanos leave here. But that's not our business anymore, so I don't know what to say. I guarantee you if the Chargers were still in San Diego, there would be no Brady rumors at all. I think that was just crap to try and get LA interested in them.
Mike Riley, no relation, wanted to draft Brady. Remember that?
I was a little before my time.
Yeah, he wanted to draft Brady, but I think it was, who was the GM? Was it A.J. Smith, I think?
No, it was probably John Butler.
Or John Butler. I think, they went with someone else. But imagine if he had been a Charger from the start. Wouldn't that be something?
Well, actually, I don't think he would have been as good if he didn't end up with, Belichick and Josh McDaniels and all that. Because if you remember, other than 2010, he wasn't that great until McDaniels came back in 2011. No, excuse me. Actually, I stand corrected because McDaniels came back in 2012. Mm-hmm. So I stand corrected on that. I thought he wasn't as good without McDaniels. When McDaniels was the Denver head coach, then I think he went to St. Louis where he came back as New England's OC for a second time after Bill O'Brien went to Penn State. Mm-hmm. I stand corrected on that. But I just thought he wasn't as good without McDaniels, but apparently I was wrong.
Brady's a special guy. But yeah, I see he has such a strong brand, a brand of a champion, that he doesn't need to cling for another year or two with another team.
That's another thing. That brand of a champion you have. That Brady is a guy who's obsessed with winning and competing, and Spanos family doesn't care if they win or not. They don't care if they have fans or not. They don't care about that. That's just the most complete mismatch ever.
So, what's your take on the Chargers? They're not going to move, are they? There's been those rumors about London or some other city. But
I've talked about that before on here. Honestly, who knows? Let's just hope they continue to suck until Spanos sells the team.
Right on.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
So let's break down the NFL playoffs. What did you see yesterday?
I thought there were some pretty good games this weekend. Mm-hmm. I mean, Buffalo completely choked that game against Houston. Mm-hmm. That was a good game between Tennessee and New England. The evil empire fell at the hands of Mike Vrabel.
That was something,
and beats his old coach in Belichick. That was great to see. See the Patriots dynasty looks like it's about to come to an end.
Yeah.
Finally.
It's been 2 decades that thing has been going on, right?
They haven't had a losing season since 2000.
That's unbelievable.
In a salary cap league, that's impossible.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody will be sad to see their demise that's coming up.
I grew up a 49er fan, and so I always thought Montana was the greatest of all time, but he's not. I still
think Montana is the greatest of all time. I mean, he had 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in his 4 Super Bowl wins, and he was MVP 3 times.
Right.
And, he didn't play in an era where you can't breathe on the receiver, and you were actually allowed to hit the quarterback then. He wasn't have any Spygate or Deflategate on his record.
So how many rings does Brady have? Is it 6?
Yeah, 6.
6.
I think obviously Brady's a great quarterback, but a lot of that has to do with Belichick and the culture and the teams that he's been on. In 2 of his Super Bowl wins, Brady hasn't even scored 20 points offensively. When they played St. Louis in his first Super Bowl, I don't even know how he won MVP of that Super Bowl. He didn't even pass for 200 yards. They scored 13 offensive points. The other 7 came because Ty Law got a pick 6 of Warner. Mm-hmm. And then the last Super Bowl, he only scored 13 points.
Wow.
He didn't even throw a touchdown pass.
Wow.
So... Yeah. And Montana was MVP in 3 of his Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. Actually, deserved all 3 MVPs. Unlike Brady, he didn't deserve MVP of his first Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And then in the 4th one, he played pretty well too. I mean, Jerry Rice won MVP, and so who had to get Rice? Who had to get Rice the ball?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good call. All right, so maybe I'll stick with Montana.
I believe the game Rice won Super Bowl MVP was the game where Montana led the big drive at the end against Cincinnati. I could be wrong about that, but I remember Rice had 10 catches against Cincinnati, so maybe the game Rice won MVP was actually the one where Montana led the famous 90-yard drive against Cincinnati.
And that's the one where John Taylor caught the touchdown pass at the end.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So, because the 4 Super Bowls with Montana were the first one against Cincinnati.
Yeah, that one they actually jumped out to a big lead in Cincy kind of made it close, but they won 26-21 or something like that.
Yeah, and then
they blew out the Broncos.
And then they
blew out Miami. And then they had the comeback against Cincinnati. They broke Boomer Esiason's heart.
Wow. Bengals, man. It's another cursed team right there. But at least they've made the Super Bowl twice.
Yeah, we only saw the Chargers make the Super Bowl once when they belonged to us.
Yeah. Amazing.
And it was before I was born, so I don't even remember it, obviously.
So what were the other 2 playoff games?
We had Seattle and Philly. Unfortunately, Penny got hurt the Monday night game.
Right.
Sunday night game, sorry, against the Rams up in LA. That was really unfortunate because he was really coming to his own when that happened. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if the Seahawks win the Super Bowl, he still gets a ring, so that's something to root for.
Right on.
We got another Aztec on the. They didn't play this weekend because they had a first round bye, but on San Francisco, Daniel Brunskill, one of their linemen, San Diego State guy.
Right on.
So between San Francisco and Seattle, you got a 50-50 chance that the NFC champion has an Aztec. I mean, Penny's not playing, unfortunately, but if they win, he still gets a ring.
Cool.
Just like Calvin Munson got a ring for being on New England's practice squad last year.
Nice.
Which I didn't even know until I saw a picture of him with the Super Bowl trophy on his Instagram.
Really?
I was like, I was thinking to myself, oh man, the Patriots won the Super Bowl again. Why do we even watch this stupid league? Then I see Munson with the Super Bowl trophy, and I'm like, he was on the Patriots practice squad. He gets a ring. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah, right on.
And I did forget the Minnesota New Orleans game. That was a shocker. I thought New Orleans had a really good chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Minnesota went into the Superdome and beat them.
How about that? What's that player's name? And he's playing wide receiver and quarterback.
Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's a BYU guy, but he's an absolute beast.
Yeah, he was special.
He makes me want to root for him so bad, even though he went to BYU. That's how special of a talent he is.
So what do you how do you see the next round of the playoffs rolling out?
I actually think Seattle's going to go into Green Bay and win. I don't think Green Bay's that good. They got pretty lucky to win a lot of the games that they won this year. So I think Seattle's going to go in there and beat them. Other than that, I got the home teams. I got, San Francisco will beat Minnesota.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Baltimore will beat Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then Kansas City should beat Houston. I mean, I know Houston went into Arrowhead and won in the regular season, but that was Tyreek Hill's first game back. Sammy Watkins was out. Eric Fisher was out. I believe Kansas City had another offensive lineman out, and they weren't playing the defense. The great defense they've played the last 6 weeks of the regular season, they weren't playing that then. Mm-hmm. And I think Mahomes was still hobbling around then. So, I mean, there's always a chance Houston could do it because Deshaun Watson's incredible.
Oh, unbelievable.
He's incredible. So he has a chance, to put Houston on his back and, carry him to the miraculous win. But I think Kansas City should win that game by 10, 14 points.
Nice.
So I got a Kansas City, Baltimore, and Seattle, San Francisco conference championships.
Okay. Imagine that. Imagine if San Francisco, Seattle, and Kansas City all win. You'd have 3 of the 4 semifinalists west of the Mississippi.
Oh, another thing about Kansas City is David Wells, former SDSU tight ends on Kansas City's practice squad. So he would get a ring too, like Munson did last year.
Yeah, right on. Okay.
So pretty decent chance we're going to get an Aztec getting a ring this year, whether they actually played or not. I mean, Penny did play most of the season.
Remember, you and I you were talking about Seattle and Green Bay. Remember that game, and they went to overtime in the playoffs, and Matt Hasselbeck said, "We're going to take the ball and we're going to win."
And then he threw a pick six to Al Harris.
Yeah,
yeah, I've seen that many times before. That
was a long time ago. That
was like 03 or 04.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. So, who do you like to win the whole thing?
I'm going to go with Baltimore. I mean, they've been the best team since they haven't lost since week 5. Lamar Jackson's just a special kind of talent. So I'm going to take Baltimore to win it. Although, Kansas City, they beat Baltimore without Tyreek Hill back in week 3. Mm-hmm. And that was, again, before they were playing the defense they've played. And once you've played Lamar Jackson once, if you see him again in the same season, you're like, okay, this is what they do. Because Lamar Jackson's a great talent and John Harbaugh's a great coach. So not taking anything away from them, but a lot of some of their success, I wouldn't even say a lot of their success, but some of it definitely comes from that they play such a unique offense. Like, remember when Georgia Tech was good under Paul Johnson with the triple option offense, but they lose almost every bowl game because when you had more time to prepare for their option offense? Mm-hmm. That's kind of a similar thing with Baltimore because their offense isn't really run in the NFL. So once you see it once, you're like, all right, this is what we can do, when we play them a second time. And we can maybe figure them out a little more. And Kansas City beat them once, despite not playing very good defense that game. Like, Lamar kind of ate them up that game. They scored like 30-something points. Mm-hmm. It was a shootout at Arrowhead. So maybe they can find something, to slow down Lamar a little more. Like I said, they're playing much better defense since then anyways. So I could definitely see Kansas City winning in Baltimore, but I do think Baltimore would win. And I think Baltimore would beat the NFC champion just because you look at San Francisco. I'm Jimmy Garoppolo's so hot and cold. If he's cold, they're in trouble. Minnesota, you really think Kirk Cousins is going to win 4 playoff games? I mean, he just got his first one. And then Seattle's, I would like Seattle's team a lot if they were healthy, but they're not. It's not just Penny that's hurt. The starting running back, Chris Carson's hurt. The third string running back, CJ Prozize is hurt. And they had to bring Marshawn Lynch back, and he was serving tequila shots in the parking lot at the Raiders' last home game in Oakland. And they brought him in. They had to bring him back in because they just had so many injuries there, and their defense hasn't played well all season. I mean, honestly, they would have lost yesterday if Wentz didn't go out.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then Green Bay, like I said, I just don't think they're that good. I don't know how they won as many games as they did.
Right. Okay, so who do you think emerges from the NFC?
I'm going to go with San Francisco.
Okay, so Baltimore over San Francisco in the Super Bowl. Where is the Super Bowl this year? Miami. All right.
Which is really a great lesson, like at Hard Rock Stadium, a great lesson of what could have been here if, we had, a non-Spanos owner. Because Stephen Ross, he put $500, $600 million into, remember, it was Sun Life Stadium, and it was a multi-purpose. They had
Joe Robbie Stadium, right?
Yeah. Sun Life, Joe Robbie, pro player, the stadium with like 800 names.
Right.
Multi-purpose stadium, the Marlins played there too, and he actually, I think he tried to get public money for a stadium. He was told no. So, he didn't, act like a dick and move the team like Spanos did. He's like, okay, I'll put my own money in then, fine.
Right.
And he put, $500, $650 million there, and he totally changed it. It's basically a new stadium. You can't ever tell that it was the same stadium that used to host the Marlins. You can't even tell. It looks completely different. Mm-hmm. See, that's what happens when you have, actual owners that put money into their product and team. Like Spanos wouldn't even replace light bulbs at Qualcomm. I don't know if you saw that tweet a couple months ago.
No, I didn't. No.
Where Rich Orenberger, I think it was, said they would wait until somebody else came in to replace the light bulbs. They wouldn't pay for them. They wouldn't even go 50-50 with SDSU for a new scoreboard. That's how cheap they were. And they were never going to invest the money into, renovating Qualcomm like they could have. They could do what the Hunts do at Arrowhead and put, $100, $200 million in every 15, 20 years, keep it modern, keep having Super Bowls, keep the team, never have to worry about relocating or getting a handout for a new stadium. But, they suck, so.
The Spanos should have seen the writing on the wall because the trend in California is not to publicly finance stadiums. I mean, Cranky is privately financed. The San Francisco Giants Stadium, I think, was privately financed.
Correct.
And then, I don't know, has there been any... Well, the arena that the Warriors are playing in, I think, is also privately financed.
The problem with Dean Spanos is he is oblivious to reality, and he saw what the Padres did with Petco Park. Mm-hmm. They, campaigned their asses off. They endeared themselves to the community. They had the World Series run. And all that was like, okay, we'll give you your $200 million for Petco Park. And Dean Spanos saw that and thought he was entitled to that and didn't do any of the work that the Padres did for Petco Park.
Yeah.
He thought he was entitled to that instead of doing the work to get it like the Padres did.
Right.
And that's what I've said this whole time since they moved. I think this week, at the end of this week, actually, is the 3-year anniversary of that. And that's got to be my worst day as a sports fan.
Oh,
It's, honestly, it might be one of the worst days of my life, too. That was just terrible.
Oh, it was awful. But, my interest in the NFL had been declining prior to them moving.
And then after that, it's just like, okay, I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. My interest fell off the cliff. And so I saw some of the games over the weekend, the NFL games, but it was mostly like something on in the background while I was doing other things. It wasn't like I sat down and watched it. So my attention is definitely way more with college basketball, college football. I'm looking forward to baseball coming back. So
honestly, I was glad that 3 of the 4 road teams won this weekend, because every time I see like home crowds getting like going crazy and fired for their team, it reminds me of what we had in San Diego, what was taken from us by Spanos and Goodell. When I see that, like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, I was really happy for them. I'm like, yay, these guys, they've waited a long time for this in Philadelphia. They've backed that team passionately, sometimes a little over the line, but definitely passionately for a lot of years. And they finally got rewarded with that Super Bowl, and they beat New England. So I was like, great, this is awesome. I felt great for them for like a day or two, and then I saw the celebrations, on social media or whatever. I'm like, God, we're never gonna get a chance to that in San Diego because of Dean Spanos. And I got mad and sad all over again for a couple of days after that.
Yeah.
That's not to say I don't like seeing new teams win, because obviously I do. But when you see that happen, you're just like, man, that could have been us, but Spanos took that from us, and it hurts. It really hurts.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of people that are still feeling the pain in San Diego County.
I was just telling my dad yesterday actually, that unless San Diego gets a team back, whether that's the Chargers coming back without Spanos or an expansion or another relocated team, whatever, unless we get the NFL back and that team wins the Super Bowl, the Marlon McCree fumbled interception will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Oh, man. That was the game against New England, right?
Yeah, that was the 14-2 LT MVP year. He fumbled the ball back to the Patriots. It was a 4th down play. He should have just knocked it down. Then you would have had MVP LT going. It was an old and tired Patriots defense. It would have been game over.
Yeah, I mean, he just could have just taken a knee.
And then they would have had to play Indy, who had like a historically awful run defense that year in the AFC Championship, and then Rex Grossman in the Super Bowl. So they absolutely could have won the Super Bowl that year. That would have been our Super Bowl.
And what year was that again?
2006 season.
Okay.
So it was the 06-07 season. Like, they played the playoffs in January of 07 and Super Bowl February 4th, 07.
I remember that
But it was
game.
2006 season.
And the minute, when McCree fumbled it and then New England got it, you just knew that they were going to score, and they did.
I mean, you can't give teams like that second life. That's why I thought even Saturday when Tennessee, they get a stop, I'm like, okay, if they can get a touchdown here, they can have a chance. But they weren't scoring, so I just thought, oh, they're gonna blow it. New England will pull it out, but that never happened, shockingly.
So I mean, it's just
that just tells you that the end is coming for the Patriots, because like during, in the past years, Patriots would have always won that game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're turning the page, right?
Absolutely.
End of an era.
And thank goodness. I mean, it's not fun to see the same team in the AFC Championship game every year.
Oh, no.
It's like, AFC Championship game, Foxborough.
I know.
Every year. That's not fun. I like different teams to win. That's not fun.
Well, I think it's good to have, an evil empire, someone to root against for a period of time, but not for 20 years.
Yeah, I think baseball's better, like, now that the Yankees are really good again, because now everybody wants to beat the Yankees, and, the Yankees are coming to town. Big series this weekend, that kind of deal. So I think it's great for baseball that the Yankees are good again, but the Yankees haven't won a World Series in 11 years now, so they had enough time where they didn't win a ring that it's like, all right, bring back the evil empire Yankees now. We need a bad guy to take down, kind of deal.
Wow. So, hey, just last little bit about baseball. There's still some free agents floating around. Josh Donaldson hasn't signed. Do you think?
I thought Josh Donaldson signed 2 months ago, apparently, but I don't know what happened to that.
Yeah.
Maybe he had a deal and it fell through, and
I know there's still. I mean, Puig hasn't signed. Yasiel Puig.
Well, Puig's more of a name and kind of like a fun guy than like a guy you'd rather have on your team. Like, yeah. I've been saying this about Puig for like Padre fans who want him. Like, is he a fun guy? Yeah. Is he entertaining? Yeah. Do I want him on my team? Not really. I mean, he's kind of a head case. He's really inconsistent. There's questions about how much he actually cares about baseball,
Right.
He's an entertaining guy to have, but he's kind of overrated and he's kind of a head case. So do you really want that as entertaining as he is? I personally don't. I'd rather just have fun watching him on some other team.
Yeah, well, I agree.
That's how I feel about Puig. He's very entertaining, but I would not want him on the Padres.
Not at all. He would be disruptive to what they're trying to build.
Absolutely.
But I still want someone to sign him.
Absolutely.
You know, because I like seeing him. You know,
he's fun. He's fun.
The head first slide into third base with his tongue hanging out, you know. Or,
licking the bat.
Yeah, licking the bat. Or, man, you know, just going 1 against 25 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ready to
Pirates.
Yeah, or the Pirates, excuse me. Yeah. Just that's great. I love that.
Fighting for Cincinnati after the Reds traded him to Cleveland.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Yeah. So
when Chris Archer's like on the ground, he gets up and Puig shows him against the railing.
That's good stuff. So, yeah, there's still some free agents that are floating around. You got anything on the NBA? You got any takes there?
I think I said this before. Ask me after the Super Bowl. That's when I really start paying attention.
All right.
But, hey, Kawhi's 2-0 against the Lakers.
He is.
Beat him on Christmas. That was a really good game.
That was. I still will watch the Laker games and the Clipper games when they're on TV. The NBA is a lot more fun to watch right now. But, yeah, I think we'll get more serious after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's when I kind of just watched the NBA sporadically up until the Super Bowl. And then after the Super Bowl, I started watching more NBA.
The kid that I really like seeing the highlights on is that John Morant guy.
Oh, Memphis?
Yeah, and he's something else.
Too bad he's on an absolutely terrible team, but maybe they can build something up and he can play in some important games.
Yeah.
In the not too distant future.
Unbelievable. So what do you think? This is the Steve Fisher ball right here. And we had it signed. My wife's cousin went to the Final Four when it was in Dallas. And she got the signature of Steve Fisher.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's from my son, Trevor. So I thought I'd put it out here because I knew we were going to talk Aztecs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about Aztec basketball? What do you think their ceiling is? What's their floor for like the NCAA tournament? Because I think it's pretty safe to assume, barring a absolutely catastrophic collapse, like losing every game the rest of the season, that they'll be in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, they'll make the tournament for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're ranked number 7 right now. So closing thought, what do you think their ceiling is? What's their floor?
I think this is the year that they could potentially get beyond the Sweet 16. Now, I don't think we can say they're going to win the championship, although I'd love to see that happen.
I mean, college basketball is more wide open this year than it will be almost any other year. I mean, North Carolina is just flat out not good.
Right.
And there's other teams like Duke's pretty good. Kansas is pretty good. You know those teams. But, I mean, there's a lot of, blue bloods that really are not great this year. I mean, we're ranked ahead of Kentucky. We're ranked ahead of Virginia, who won the national championship last year.
Right.
We're even ranked ahead of Michigan State. There's just college basketball is way more wide open this year than it's ever been, I think, since I started watching it. So there's definitely a lot of potential for something special there. I definitely think this team should at least make the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I would agree. But, it's the whole thing, like, why not us, right?
Yeah.
So if they're feeling good and they got positive vibes, they've been talking so much about the chemistry is so great this year.
Yeah.
That's kind of a little bit of a backhand slap on the seniors that left last year.
Or even, like, Jalen McDaniels leaving to go to the NBA. And that's another point I want to make is I don't think we miss Jalen McDaniels at all. I really don't. And here's why I say this. I mean, I'm not saying like he doesn't care about basketball or that he's a selfish player. I'm not flat out saying that or that he doesn't want to win. But I think he was here until he could go to the NBA. So I think if we lost, but he, got his, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, like he wasn't broken up about us losing.
Right.
Like if he got his 15, 8, 3, whatever.
Right.
Not to say he is a bad teammate, he's selfish, or he doesn't want to win, but it's just like, it's not like he's not all in for the team like the guys we have right now.
And it also seemed that in the biggest games, he would disappear.
Like even in his freshman year, when we in the Mountain West tournament went over to New Mexico, like he wasn't even in the last like 7-8 minutes. He didn't really do much. We still beat New Mexico and made the tournament, but yeah, he didn't do much in that.
So yeah, I say
like Trey Kell won that game.
Oh God, yeah, Trey Kell was fantastic
in that game against New Mexico.
Right,
and win the Mountain West championship, we go to the tournament. That was great.
So I think if you're asking me floor and ceiling, the floor is they'll make the tournament.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, the ceiling, why not us? A national championship this year, probably better chance than ever for this program. But I think a realistic thing for me as a fan is I think they can make the Elite Eight. I mean, they're already in the top 8 now.
Absolutely. I think they can be in the Elite Eight. I mean, and we got a long way to go for the tournament, so this probably won't be the matchup. But it does worry me that our current matchup, Texas Tech, is the 7th seed in the same region we are on Lunardi's. Again,
right.
we got a long way to go, and I think Texas Tech will be beyond a 7th seed by that point. They kind of had a slow start, and they've picked it up lately. Mm-hmm. But Texas Tech is a 7th seed. Like, they scare me as a 7 if we were a 2. Like, if that happens, they absolutely scare me in the round of 32.
Yeah.
Although we did beat 2 teams that beat them, so...
Yeah, so...
I mean, but still, that's a team. You know, they played for the national title last year. Chris Beard's a really good coach. They play in the Big 12. They play against Kansas, you know. Kind of worries me a little bit if, like, we end up facing, like, they're the 7, we're the 2. But again... long way to go. That probably won't be the matchup.
So let's just focus on
getting as good of a seed as possible, I think.
Yeah, so let's just win in Wyoming, all right?
Yeah, one game at a time. Win at Wyoming. After we do that, worry about Boise State, you know, and so forth and so forth.
And then let's get Mensah back. Let's get Arop back.
I think you'll see Arop back before Mensah. That's my prediction on that.
And then I think, you know, if you got all your guys going down the stretch of the regular season, I think it can set up really well.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a team, you know, they won at BYU. They won at Utah State. They won on a neutral floor against Utah, against Iowa, against Crane. I mean, this team's battle-tested.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I think we should be ranked ahead of Auburn. You know, we're both undefeated, but we have better wins. The only reason Auburn's ahead of us is because they played in the Final Four last year.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only reason Auburn's even ranked ahead of us.
And they're in a power conference, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at resume, like, ours is better than Auburn's.
Right.
That might sound biased, but I mean...
No, it's real.
Has Auburn won at BYU? Has Auburn won at Utah State? Has Auburn been Iowa and Creighton? No, I don't think so.
No, not at all. Not at all. But they've got... Kentucky, right, is in their conference, right?
Yeah, SEC, yeah.
Yeah. And what other big-time SEC teams are there this year?
I don't know if Tennessee's as good as they have been the last couple of years, but they're in there. I think that's all. SEC's more known for its football. They don't have that great of a basketball conference. Like, Florida's in the SEC, and they're projected as a 10 seed. They might be the 3rd best team in the SEC.
Okay. All right, well, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, God, I love the map update. That whole thing about the map on Twitter is fantastic.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it looks like, you know, Auburn should win a lot of their games, so it'll probably, like, stay the same, or, you know, we lose and Auburn just has the whole map or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was more fun when it was, like, 8 teams, then it was 6, then it was 4, then it was 3, then it was 2. It was more fun when it was that. Now it's not really, you know, fun anymore. It's just, I still follow Auburn to see, like, they lose first, so we have the whole map. But it's not as fun when there was, like, 10 teams and it kept going down, like, 8, 6, 5, 4.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, actually, when we did that.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It was just something fun to root for, you know, beyond just the game itself. So Wednesday night at Laramie, what's tip-off? Maybe, like, probably 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, yeah.
Pacific time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's something to look forward to in a couple of days.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dave, thanks for joining me again, man.
Thanks for having me.
I love these conversations, and there's so much to cover, so we'll have you back here maybe in a few weeks, and by then maybe we'll be at or right after the Super Bowl, and we'll see how things are going.
Yeah, hopefully right before spring training starts, I'll be back on here.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll have to come on, you know, of course, before opening day.
Well, we'll break it down. Maybe we'll get the whiteboard out here. We can maybe chart out the roster and have some fun with it.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. Baseball was my first love, and, you know, I've always been a diehard Padres fan, and I think they have the best long-term outlook they've ever had in my lifetime. Well, 98, they went to the World Series, but that was a one-year thing.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, a baby then, so I don't remember any of it. Let's just say since I've been a fan, this is definitely their best long-term outlook.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, like, even when they were good, like when I was first a fan, you know, mid-2000s, you know, it was always a year-to-year thing. They didn't have, like, looking forward. There was always a year-to-year thing.
Yes.
Like, we got Giles these 2 years. We got Klesko these 2 years. We got Peavy these 3. Hoffman these 2, 3. You know, it was never, like, a long-term outlook like they got now, so... It's pretty exciting stuff. Like, even if they don't, like, make the playoffs this year, if they take another step forward and have a real special year in 2021, I'll take that too. Better than the last 15 years.
Well, we'll definitely do a big-time preview of the team. I think there's going to be a couple of more moves still coming.
Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe if they can, you know, attach a prospect that's good, but not, you know, somebody we'd cry over losing to get rid of Myers and sign like an Ozuna or something like that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well,
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Maybe AJ's got something up his sleeve. I mean, we had 2 big signings in February the last previous two off seasons. So
That's right.
Let's see what AJ's got up his sleeve before the spring training games start.
Exactly. All right, man. Well, thanks, David.
Thanks for having me.
All right, go Aztecs.
Yeah, go Aztecs.